Hello and welcome back to the Power of No live series. I'm Helen Ranevik, a visionary coach and consultant, and I'm the creator of The Power of No Without Guilt, a transformational program for high achieving givers who are ready to reclaim their time, their energy, and their emotional freedom without apology. And today's conversation is a special one because it's the final live before the doors open to my program tomorrow. So, over the past month, I have explored how boundaries shape our careers, creativity, and online presence. However, today we are shifting the focus to one of the most challenging areas to say no to in love and relationship. I'm joined by Mina Yang, a relationship coach and a hypnotherapist who helps high achieving women to reconnect with themselves and to create emotionally aligned love. Did I say it right, Mina?
That was perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And today, this episode is called, and I'm going to put it up there, Saying No in Love. Why high achieving women struggle with boundaries in relationships. So, Mina, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And this is a great question. I think that the assumption is since high achieving women do so well professionally, that they should do well in all areas of life. But of
Mm,
course, that's not always the case. And I feel like there's certain challenges for high achieving women in relationships because of who they are. So there are a
mm,
couple of things. One is that in work, it generally goes that the more effort you put into something, the better you do. The outcome tends to be pretty correlative to the effort, right? So if you work really hard, you get the promotion, you get the pay raises. But that's not always the case in relationships.
no.
Sometimes too much effort or the wrong effort or effort in the wrong relationship can actually backfire, and it can actually cause you to shrink and become a lesser version of yourself. And then the second big reason is that sometimes overachievers are driven to achieve, not necessarily because of the pleasure of doing so, but because of something that happened to them in their childhood. Perhaps they grew up in an environment
Relationships,
where they weren't getting
sometimes
the kind
too
of
much effort or the wrong
sorry,
effort or effort
getting
in the wrong
the
relationship can
one up
actually.
here.
So, no.
Okay.
See the questions that are coming in. But it was on. Continue.
Okay,
My
no
apologies.
problem. That's the fun of live, right? So if they grew up in an environment that was chaotic, where perhaps they weren't getting the attention or the love that they needed, one coping mechanism is to achieve. And so the hyperachieving might be a sign of them seeking validation elsewhere. And so when they grow up, they continue this behavior of achieving and they are getting accolades, they are getting validation, but they still haven't really addressed some of the wounds that are at the root of this behavior.
Mm,
And if you haven't really healed those wounds of feeling like you're not enough, like you're not lovable, that you need external validation and you're not able to give that validation to yourself, when you show up in relationships, you're not really in a place to get the kind of love that's nourishing and
mm,
that's really good for you.
mm. And we are maybe not told all these things when we are young. How are we going to show up in a relationship? Maybe, like you said, it's inherited. We watch our parents, okay, and we model them. So, one thing I ask all my guests when they come up, when you hear the phrase, the power of no without guilt, what does it bring up for you? It could be personally or professionally or both.
Well, I mean, a lot of what I deal with is in the personal sphere. And so I can say that, I love this phrase, but it's one that I've come to love as an adult
Mm,
because what I grew up watching was my mom give up everything. She was a martyr. She did everything for everyone else. And she had a chronic illness for years, which I'm sure had something to do with her giving constantly.
mm,
And that was my role model. And so I thought that that's how we had to show up with our families, with loved ones.
Mm.
And I think there's also a lot of social conditioning. We, from the time we're little, we're told as girls, you have to nurture other people. You have to be there for other people. You have to be a nice girl.
Mm.
And it takes a lot to undo that.
Mm.
I don't know if you're familiar with the original story of The Little Mermaid. I feel like that's like such a great cautionary tale, right? Not the
Yeah.
glossy Hollywood
Yes.
Disney version where everyone, lives happily ever after, but the original Hans Christian Andersen story
Yes.
where the Little
It's from my
Mermaid.
areas over here in
Oh,
Europe,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Great. So
Mm.
maybe I don't have this completely correct, but I think for listeners, it would be helpful to know this. So the Little Mermaid falls in love with a prince, makes a deal with the sea witch to have human legs for the price of her voice.
Mm.
And so to pursue her love, she gives up her voice. And then when she walks on her human legs, every step is like a knife wound. And then in the end, she doesn't even get the prince. He marries someone else. And so she turns into sea foam and disappears. And I feel like that is such a cautionary tale of women who give and give and give for their love. And in the end, they get nothing in return. They give up their voice. They live in agony. So, the fact that that story exists says something about what the sort of the general expectations are for women even today.
Mm. And let's see what else I could ask you. You answered this a little bit. So why do you think so many high achieving women who are confident, like you said, in their careers, still struggle to set the emotional boundary in relationship? Because there are different kind of boundaries we have to set.
Because I think if you're coming from a place of not having received enough love as a child, you have a hard time really acknowledging that you are lovable just by being who you are.
Mm.
And so you feel like you have to just keep giving in order to have value in the relationship.
Mm.
So again, it really goes back to healing that part of you that somehow feels you're not enough.
Mm. Should maybe be a topic at school that we should, not just women, even men, because today we are talking a lot about men healing themselves. What will happen then in the world if the men are healed, um because they also have feelings and
Yeah.
emotions to show. So what's one common thing, a common inner conflict you see when it comes to saying no in love, like guilt, fear, or rejection, or people pleasing?
Well, I think it's because we're all raised to be nice and to be giving. I think it actually gets at the very identity of who we are. That we feel like, if we don't give, if we say no to people, that somehow we're actually shaking up the very identity of who we are. And so it's certainly guilt because we feel, especially in a role as mothers, that we are supposed to be giving constantly. But it's also the fear of rejection, the fear of somebody deciding not to love us, to leave us. And it's this fear that, maybe just by being ourselves, that this is not enough, that we have to actually constantly be giving to other people in order to be enough for them.
Yeah, that's so, it's to listen in, and also know you are enough. I struggled with that for a long time until I was 50, to say I am enough the way I am. So you work deeply with the body and the subconscious. And how does our nervous system affect our default yes in relationships?
That's such an interesting question, right? Because our subconscious contains all these beliefs that were formed when we were very young, when we weren't really aware of what was going on. We just kind of absorbed it all.
Mm.
And they continue to guide us in our decisions. So the fact that, a lot of women keep chasing emotionally unavailable men, it's not because that's really what they want, but our subconscious keeps pushing us toward things that feel familiar to us.
Mm.
So especially for those of us who grew up in chaotic households, we keep choosing men who are perhaps not the best for us. And so our subconscious leads us there, but our bodies know the sort of the deeper truth. And so we often have physical symptoms of putting ourselves in these situations that are really unhealthy. So for example, I was telling Helene right before the live that, I worked with one client who came to me with issues of self-confidence, issues around relationships. But after we did the hypnotherapy session, she texted me the next day and said, this back pain I've had for years just disappeared. It's just gone. And I didn't even know she had back pain. We didn't talk about the back pain, but we carry this in our bodies. When I was getting trained in hypnotherapy and I was on the other side of it, every time I was having a session and talking about a lot of these, these scenes from long, long ago, my hips would just be in so much pain because I was just carrying it all there. And that was sort
And
of
that's very common for women, to carry it in their hips. It's so, so common.
yeah, it's amazing. So there's definitely this kind of interconnectedness between our subconscious and our bodies, and a lot of the healing work is about sort of untangling all of that.
And then, always listen in to your nervous system,
Mhm. Mhm.
because it will tell you something. If something doesn't feel, like animals, they know when something feels off, and we do
Mhm.
too, but we just
Mhm.
have to be aware of that and just pause.
Mhm.
Pausing is so, so important. And, like you said, it could be from a long time, so like your client, I mean, she had no idea, or you didn't know about her backache, but that got cleared because there was something else, and there's usually layers.
Absolutely. And what you're saying about pausing is so important, because I feel like so many of us have this internal monologue, and it really covers up what's going on in our lives. And so if we can pause and just be quiet and actually listen to our bodies, because our bodies are giving us signals, it can really help us, heal so much faster.
And also remember that, your thoughts are only from the past. So when we pause and we get present right now,
Mhm.
that's when we can feel new things, because all our thought, feelings, and emotions is from the past. They're not in the future, but they will become to the future, when we just carry them with us, all the time. And we can leave them. We don't have to carry them with us if they don't serve us. So what are some signs that someone may have, um, that have lost themselves in relationship, even if everything looks okay on the outside? Because that's very common, to say, oh, but you look like such a great couple, you look so happy.
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think, to put it the most simply, it's about whether your life feels more expansive. You've got more options, you feel more confident, you feel like you have more energy, or does it feel like everything is constricted, that you've been diminished and you feel less of yourself, that
Mm.
you've got less confidence, you have less, hope for the future. Everything is just smaller. So, I mean, again, it's back to the body too, right? Like when you think about your relationship, do you feel like just the sense of expansion, or do you feel kind of like you're contracting within yourself?
Mm.
So I think that's the sort of the simplest way of knowing.
Mm. Veronica, she was here and she said, love these insights. I know that's my coach who has
Oh,
actually,
great.
yeah, so she's looking in. That's my coach that has been standing by my side, helping me create the power of no without guilt. And I'm so, so grateful to her. And then we have also Norbert Brown. He said, nowadays, career comes first for women. Money is more secure than men. Wow.
Can I address that?
Of course.
So there's a lot in that statement, and I won't try to guess exactly where you're coming from, Norbert, when you say that. But I would like to say that, sometimes money can give us a sense of safety that perhaps a relationship hasn't been able to in the past. And women sometimes feel like they have more control over their professional lives. As I said earlier in our discussion, at work, if you do certain things, you are kind of guaranteed certain outcomes. Not always, but there tends to be more of a correlation between what you put in and what you get out. With relationships, we don't often have that confidence that we're going to be able to have control or a kind of a foreknowledge of the outcome. And so that's part of the reason why women are putting more effort into careers, but it also buys us just so many more options, right? Like, again, I look at my mother's life and she was trapped. She didn't really have a choice but to stay in a marriage that was very painful for her. And now we can actually make our own money and we can leave relationships that are hurting us. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But yeah, sometimes we do use our career as excuses not to put ourselves out there because we're scared. So there is that too.
And I also want to, it's also maybe the world we are living in now, because for a woman to be in her feminine energies, she needs that man to be there as the anchor, for her, to support her, because as being us feminine, we are, creative and this and whatever. Are we being allowed to be that? That's not always that easy. So, yeah.
Well, I think that both men and women have masculine and
Of
feminine
course, of
energy.
course, of
And
course.
so, and I think that we all need each other. Like, I do feel like when you're in the right relationship and you're showing up in a way that's fully, you, and you're not hiding, I feel like, yeah, everything becomes more possible. I mean, that's what I mean by like just your life just becoming more expansive. And so absolutely, I think it's great because there is this balance of feminine and masculine. And I think it's true for both me and my partner. And so, that's something that we should all want. But I think a lot of us deny it because we've been hurt too many times in the past.
Yeah. And women today, we have to carry a lot of things. We have to go out into the career. We have to get a career, but many of us also want to be a mother, so we have to be a mother. But it's a lot of things that you still have to continue doing. So, can you share a story, either from your work or personal life, of a woman or another woman who reconnected with herself by saying no in relationship? I mean, you started a
Yeah.
little bit there, from your
Yeah.
mother. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my post today was about our talk today, but I also told the story of my divorce. I would say that my divorce was a big no. And I
A big
recall
no, sorry, from you or from the society?
from me
Ah.
to my relationship, to my marriage.
Mm.
So I just remember when I don't remember how many years into our marriage, but there was a Christmas where my then husband invited his sister's family. And so there were 5 of them and there were 4 of me. And I worked for days to find just the right presents for everybody, wrap them in beautiful wrapping paper. And, our Christmas tree looked glorious with all these gifts underneath that I had personally picked out and wrapped myself, every single one. And then it was Christmas morning and I didn't have a single gift to open. And I thought, this is not right. I mean, it might seem trivial just to talk about gifts, but it was just a metaphor for what my life had become. And it was really hard to leave the marriage because, we had 2 young children and you fear what's going to happen to them. But I had to do it to reclaim myself. And once you do a big no like that, other no's become easier. And you also start to see, I mean, I saw for myself that saying that no actually allowed me to build a life that's been so much better for me. And so then each subsequent no, just, you understand the power of it. You really understand from, every cell of your being.
Yeah. And, so my program is for givers, and I'm a giver and I want to be a giver. However, I have to take care of myself first. I
Yes.
have to fill my cup. And it's so easy. And even during when I was becoming a coach, and we learned all these things when you're on a plane. You put on the mask on yourself. But sometimes no. I mean, one woman I was sitting there that is a modern woman working in this, and I asked her, I said, you're in the plane, and she had, who do you put, the mask on? Her kids. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, but what's going to happen to you if you don't breathe? Then you might die. Oh, she said, I never thought about that. And it's that's why I also wanted to create this, the power of no without guilt, because if we say no, it shouldn't be out of guilt, it shouldn't be out of shame. That small word, it doesn't mean, but it has a negative sound for many. I am very positive, so then it should say that I should say yes, and I love saying yes. But should I say yes to things that is not really, that I wouldn't have thought about because I want to be nice? Nice, let's change that with kind, because kind, then you have to include yourself first.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's not about not saying yes ever. It's just that we're so conditioned as women to say yes
Mm,
that we really have to be effortful about saying no
mm,
and intentional about saying no. I think that's where you're coming from. And
mm,
so we still want to say yes to things that lift us up, yes to things that lift other people up,
mm,
but no to the things that drain us,
mm,
that make us feel like we're lesser than.
mm,
There's it's not always a yes situation, right? There's so many options now in life that we
mm.
can't possibly do everything for everyone.
No.
So it's
And
being
that goes both for men and women. I have two
absolutely.
sons and I have two daughters, and they are all, human beings, and I, of course, I mother them in a different way, because they're all individuals. I can't say, okay, this is for a boy and this for a girl. No, it depends on them. So I think, and even now, so my oldest daughter, she has two daughters, and she's such a great mother to them, really letting them express themselves. And I watch that, and I really hope this is what is going to, be the future. That, when we, because everything starts when we are children, and that's what we carry with us. Like you said, if we have wounds or we have subconscious things, we have no, maybe we don't know why we say no, or why we, say yes to certain things. We don't know, we just do. So I
Yeah.
have one last question for you.
Mhm.
What's one reframe or mindset shift about boundaries that helped your clients feel safer and freer in love? Because I
Mm.
think it's very important with safety and being free.
Yes, yes, love that. So this famous poem by Robert Frost comes to mind. It's called Mending Walls, and there's a refrain, good
You must put
fences.
the poem in the
Okay.
comments later on.
Good fences make good neighbors. So I would like to paraphrase that and say good boundaries make good partners, because
Mm,
it's about being able to recognize what your needs are, what makes you feel autonomous and safe, that allows you to really bond closely with another, to
mm,
really connect.
mm,
And so both people have to come in. There's this sort of myth out there that you have to find your other half, and no, it's really about two whole people who
mm.
understand who they are coming
Too
together that
whole.
creates the best teams, right?
Mm,
And actually, teamwork, that's another metaphor that I think works really well. Like if you imagine, I know nothing about sports, so I might be mangling this completely, but if you imagine, a tennis doubles match, you have to stay in your area. You can't constantly be going into your partner's part of the court, then you will not be effective as a team.
you
So
will be in
everyone
sync.
knows.
I think you need to, be in sync.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm,
So it's really about understanding where these fences or boundaries lie
mm,
and being able to honor them, being able to first communicate them to your partner and being able
mm,
to honor your partner's boundaries that allow you to really stay close. Just like, good fences make good neighbors. Like your property is right here. And so you can be friends with your neighbors across that fence because you understand exactly where those lines are. Whereas
mm,
if you're constantly, stepping on their turf, maybe like, having your pets going to their yard all the time, that would not work so well for
Mm,
creating good relations.
mm,
So it's about that. It's about coming together, but with the understanding that you are two different people.
mm. And I usually, being in allowance of the other person, because my point of view is my point of view and your point of view are yours. But if we can just be in allowance with the other person and just listen, we don't have to agree on everything, but we can just be there and listen, because that otherwise, you might go back and forward. It's okay. We can learn from each other, because it is it is a learning throughout my life, and I change. So of course your partner will also change, but it's also, I believe, communicating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really holding space for that other person,
Mm.
and for that other person to be a different person than you.
Mm.
You don't want to date yourself.
Exactly,
You want
exactly.
somebody different there.
Yes, of course. And that goes in life in general. I mean, sometimes when people are just arguing with some, I'm like, what a world we would live in if everyone would be the same. I mean, wouldn't it be so exciting or adventurous if everyone would think the same way? I mean, even I have 4 children and they are all so different. They don't
Mhm.
agree, but okay, let's just listen to the other person and let them, think however they want to think. Okay, with the certain things that, we have to, when we live together, we have to maybe form those boundaries. So, like, okay, maybe, and also for women, this is my body. I don't want anyone unless, I ask to touch my body. This is important. It's a boundary.
Exactly. Exactly. And then what you just said about your children too. I mean, it's because you have those boundaries that you're able to celebrate each other's differences
Yes.
and enjoy each other, even if
Yeah.
they are different, because
Yeah.
you have these clear boundaries
Hmm.
set. And then your daughter is able to teach her daughters to be, full of joy and be able to say no when they need to. I mean, it all has this ripple effect.
Hmm. And what would you like to say to the audience? Anything, whatever you want to say.
um, I guess what I would like to say is, have more love in your life. Have love for yourself to begin with. And if you are single, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because there is a lot of love in the world. And I feel like we spend so much time kind of bashing dating and bashing relationships. And there are lots of beautiful relationships out there. But it all starts with you. I mean, you have to really start by falling in love with yourself first.
That's
And
so
then,
true.
yeah, and then it just, radiates outwards from there.
So you can all connect with Mina here, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. I mean, we can always learn something, in relationship, because have we read books before we get married? How is this going to be? But working with someone that listens to you, and you now it's I have a I hear an echo. Don't know why that
Oh,
is.
it's okay
Mm.
on this end.
Okay. So, I I'm I connected with you and I loved what you were sharing, because I think it's so important. And also my program is for high achieving professionals, men and women. But there's so many different areas that we can help each other in. And you love what you're doing, I love what I'm doing, and then you know together with others, especially for me, that are givers, if they can live and be you know satisfied with themselves and feel full and not feel empty and not enough, then they will do better in this world too. So I'm so happy that you came here today, Mina. Thank you so much.
Likewise, likewise. And actually, one little footnote, now that you were mentioning books, I do have a book coming out soon. So
Oh,
please do follow me and look out for the announcement of this book, which is going to help you find that love faster and find a better love. So
When is the
definitely.
release?
I am guessing August 5th, but that's a little bit flexible. So it's soon.
We will
In a
keep
few
our
weeks.
eyes out. So, boundaries in love can feel like the hardest to hold, especially for those of us who've been taught to equate love with overgiving. But as we have explored today, saying no isn't the end of connection, it's the beginning of true intimacy and self respect. And the power of no without guilt opens tomorrow. So if you've been watching this and over the month feel like you've been losing yourself in your relationship or in yourself or in at work, if your yes has been too loud and you need to quiet, you know, maybe it needs to quiet a little bit, then this is your moment to begin again, confidently and without guilt. So I thank Mina to be here today and everyone that has listened for this past month. I will continue talking about the power of no without guilt, but tomorrow the door is open and my program is ready and you're all welcome to contact me, and you can contact Mina too. She works with relationship. I'm working with the power of no without guilt. It can go hand in hand. And yeah, do you have a last goodbye to the audience?
Just thank you for being here, and thank you for exploring love in your life. Keep doing it.
Thank you.